they give you a little sign with your bib, and it says, "I'm sleeping." So if you're in the trail and you're totally exhausted, you want to have a power nap, you put that little sign. So and you look for a rock or something and you curl there and, have a nap. So if other runners come running by you,
yeah,
they see that little sign, "I'm sleeping." So you're not dead. You're just sleeping a little bit in the trail there.
Well, we hope not, right? Hola. Welcome home to You Are the Compass with your producer and host, Jessie Clayton. This is our first video on our YouTube channel, and I'm super excited to welcome our next guest, who is currently in Chamonix, France. Now, we met a few years ago, and yes, on my travels, and all right, I admit, on a mountain, as I know you are all quietly sitting there thinking this to yourself, asking that very same question. I'm beyond grateful to not only connect with this person again, though to be able to share a piece of their story with you all. Just the scope of what they've achieved, the summits that they're still striving for, and the inspiration to others that they seem to infuse with every little step of their journey along the way. This takes humility, it takes gratitude, grit, and in my personal experience, a mindset to persevere, that when the approach to climb starts to steepen, that we go within for the answers. Horacio Galanti, welcome home to You Are the Compass.
Okay, thank you, Jessie, for having me here. Appreciate that.
A little backstory so we can choose the angle of approach for this episode, as I'm sure there will be many more to come. You and I met by chance about 2 years ago now. I was doing Cascade Mountain, which, side note, if you haven't been to Canada, you simply must. And this is one out of the beautiful town of Banff. And we were going with a group of people. I think we were out for the day, and it was through friends of friends was how we were connected. I'm painting a little picture for our audience here. This was in September, where fall weather can be, shall we say, unpredictable. And as Mother Nature would have it, the storm clouds start rolling in, the wind picks up, and forecasts for potential snow are upon us. We were actually already turned back round at that point to come back down the mountain until I heard you say, "Do you have enough water?" Yes. "Do you have enough food?" Yes. "Do you have a waterproof jacket?" Yes, yes. "And gloves and a hat?" Yes, I have all that. To your response being, "Well, then we can keep going." Horatio, if we can begin our summit here, sharing first with our audience, where does this passion for the mountains come from? And really, where did your journey start?
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jessie, and very accurate recount of our ascent to Cascade Mountain in the beautiful Banff, Canada. Well, the passion for this mountain started when I was very little kid. I was about 8 years old, and I remember I was dragging my father in my native Argentina up what I consider a big mountain. Of course, it was a little hill, but for a 8-year-old kid, it was a big deal. And I was trying to go up just to see what was on the other side. I was just so curious to summit that hill and see what was on the other side. I just wanted to see the next valley. And, actually, you mentioned I'm in Chamonix, France right now. And my ancestors, my great-grandfather was born about 200 kilometers from here in an Italian town called San Nazaro di Burgondi. So my family came from northern Italy here, very close to the border with France and Switzerland. And probably there was some genetics, passed to me through the generations because they were roaming around these mountains here, around Mont Blanc and all the beautiful Alps. So there's some genetics probably. And I started, climbing when I was very young, teenager years, mostly rock climbing. And then I evolved into high altitude, ice climbing, high altitude mountaineering when I went to university in my 20s. And then, the project, the Seven Summits project came to life in my early 20s to say, okay, maybe I I should try that. So that's a little bit my history and the passion for the mountains.
And tell us more about the Seven Summits. For those of our listeners that don't sort of know what that is, where does that come from?
Okay, sure. So the Seven Summits, it's kind of a name of a project just to climb the highest mountain on every continent, on the 7 continents, including Antarctica. And I added also the poles, the North Pole and the South Pole to the project. So that's what it's called, 7 Summits and 2 Poles. And because I grew up in Argentina, very close to Mendoza, and Mount Aconcagua, that is the highest mountain on the American continent, is located there in Mendoza at 7,000 meters of altitude. That was my training ground. So I summited Mount Aconcagua at 7,000 meters when I was 19 years old. And that has been my training ground ever since. I have summited that peak 12 times already via multiple routes. So it's a perfect training ground for high altitude. It's very cold, it's very windy, it's very dry. You have glaciers, you have crevasses, you have high altitude. So it's a good combo as a training ground. And after summiting that peak a few times, then I went to Africa to do Kilimanjaro. Then went to Russia to do Elbrus, and kind of the idea took more form. And of course, until you summit Mount Everest, that's that's a big one. Then you don't know if that's possible. But after summiting Mount McKinley in Alaska as my number 4 of the 7, I felt, okay, I think I am ready to tackle Everest seriously. And I would have a good chance if I prepare professionally, I train properly, I think I have enough experience. So at that time, it's like, okay, I have, several high altitude peaks after years of climbing. So with a friend of mine from Mendoza as well, that he has the same name like me, we went to Everest and on the south face on Nepal side, and we were able to summit Mount Everest and return, safely. It was a beautiful expedition. 2 months in the mountains. It was very hard physically and mentally because you're away from home, from all your belongings, all your and the things in life, and it's hard. It takes a toll on you after a month and a half, and physically as well. It's a very demanding peak. But after returning from Everest, I said, well, okay, I think I can finish the project. I was looking for a sponsorship and was able to get a few sponsors to assist me with Mount Vinson in Antarctica, which is a very difficult place to reach in Antarctica. And then I combined that with the South Pole. And in between Everest and Carstens, which it was my summit number 5 in Papua New Guinea, I was able to go to the North Pole, and I ran a full marathon there. That was very cold, very, very cold. But anyway, it was a fantastic experience. We were I believe 28 runners from around the world, and we were guarded by Russian guards with heavy, weapons there to protect us against the polar bears, because you're running there in the middle of nowhere, and there's a real risk of encountering a bear roaming around. So amazing experience. And then went to Papua New Guinea, which is a very unique experience because they live like in the Stone Age. I had to go about 100 kilometers on the jungle, walking, in swampy terrain, a lot of rain, just to reach base camp of the Carstens Pyramid, which is rock climbing. It's a wall, and there is a Tyrolean traverse about 5,000 meters. You need to hang up there. It's a bit dangerous. But, summited Carstens Pyramid was number 6. And I returned again another 100 kilometers walking on the jungle, guided by the local natives. So you see how they live. the traditions they have, the culture. I always say that climbing is always a part of the adventure, because the cultural component, what you learn about other people, how they live, what is important for them, opens your mind tremendously, right? So climbing is just a fraction of this story. Anyway, so when I returned from Papua New Guinea, I organized the final expedition to Mount Vinson in Antarctica, which again is a very cold, extreme place, landing in a small airplane in a glacier and just waiting for the weather forever to clear. And after that, it was a ski traverse, 120 kilometers to the South Pole, the geographic South Pole. Extremely cold. I recorded the coldest temperature in my life. It was minus 62 degrees Celsius in the thermometer. I have an alcohol thermometer. So yeah, the living conditions from the absolute basic stuff is kind of a challenge in there. Just from cooking to going washroom to basic stuff is certainly a challenge. But it was a very rewarding expedition, and was able to complete the 7 summits and the 2 poles. And after a couple of years after that, it's like, what am I going to do now? And people ask, what is next? So I was in contact with my Sherpa in Nepal. We climbed together Everest from the south side, and with my friend in Argentina as well. And with the Sherpa started planting a seed on my mind. And he said, hey, Horacio, what if we climb together the north face of Everest via Tibet? So initially I said, no, that's too crazy. I'm no, thank you. I'm going to the beach. But after a couple of years of talking with Agnigma, my Sherpa, I decided to say, okay, let's do it. I think it's a unique opportunity. And we're back to Nepal. Beautiful road trip to the Tibetan border. And again, another 2 months living in very difficult conditions, sleeping on ice, sleeping on rock. The north face is extremely windy. It's a very cold place because it's a northern exposure, northern wall. So it took us 2 months to climb. The summit day is certainly very difficult because it's rock, exposed, covered with a thin layer of ice. So as soon as you touch the ice shatters, and you are left scrambling there on rock with your crampons, very exposed. You're talking 3,000 meter falls, right? So very exposed. All the anchors are very precarious, and it's very windy. So the risk of frostbite is significant on the north face. But I was able to, climb to 8,200 meters, sleep for a few hours, and climb during the night, summited at 7 a.m. Via the north face, and descend to 7,000 meters on the North Col at 7 p.m. So it was at a 20-hour push, non-stop, at very high altitude. And that was super intense day and very rewarding. So amazing photos and amazing memories.
And do you think, like, out of all the summits, the poles that you've done, what is that intrinsic motivation to keep going? Like, how do you draw reference on each summit?
Yeah. I feel this powerful drive to be in the mountains. Right? Many people prefer to be on the beach, sitting in a lounger there. I can do that for maybe 10 minutes. And then I need to start moving. I need to go for a walk. I don't know. I don't have I would say, scientific answer to the question of why. And I was reflecting a lot about that. And as I mentioned at the beginning of our chat, probably there is some genetics from previous generations that were around here, the Chamonix area, and probably their daily lives was to walk in these mountains, to go up and down in the Alps. So there may be some genetic component, and I don't know. I think we're kind of born with that, and this drive to go up, and see what is on the other side. When I was a kid, probably still the seed and the core that motivates me to keep going. I just love being in the mountains, the fresh air, the nature. In my way here to Chamonix.
And growing up in Argentina must have something to do with it for sure.
Yes, yeah, living there we have mountains, plenty of mountains in the Andes between Chile and Argentina. In Patagonia area, I climbed extensively in the Patagonia region, so beautiful areas, right? But yeah, probably all that composed together is what keeps me going. And just being there, just being in the mountain, just sleeping on a rock in the sun, for me is priceless.
Yeah, it's something about that Mother Earth, that nature. It's a very healing kind of quality in the
Yes.
sense that you don't need any material possessions around you. It's just you and yourself out in the wilderness. Tell me, have you been able to summit each time that you've attempted these Mount Everest, your Mount Elbrus, and
Yeah, so in Everest, yes. So I did 2 attempts, and yes, I was successful both in the south face and the north face. Again, very careful preparations, right? A lot of training, a lot of equipment testing, a lot of experience before going there. Remember, these were not my first summits. Of course, at the beginning of my mountaineering career, yes, I had many times I had to come back without the summit for different reasons. Back in the day, the equipment, the gear was not the gear we have these days. Gore-Tex and all that stuff didn't exist. So the weather forecast for me is another factor. We have very accurate weather forecast these days. For example, in Everest, we were receiving a weather forecast from Switzerland and a weather forecast from Seattle in the States. And these guys, they use mathematical models on the computers to model the jet stream and do the predictions, and they're very accurate. So having reliable weather forecast is a game changer. Back in the day, I'm talking, 20 years ago, we had to predict the weather based on our own observations, very limited data, and we couldn't see anything coming, I would say, beyond 3 days. So we didn't have access to long range forecast to plan ahead. So, okay, we're going to stay here in this camp because a big storm is coming in 3 or 4 days. We didn't have that luxury. So many times when I was in my early 20s, I climbed, Aconcagua to 5,000 or 6,000 meters. I had to come back because the wind was crazy, the tents were destroyed, and that was lack of weather forecast, right? So you were just going into the unknown, trying to set up camp, and maybe the afternoon was beautiful, but next morning was a brutal snowstorm, and to come back.
yeah,
Also the experience in general, like everything in life, you are gaining experience. And sometimes, yes, we try and we fail, but I take that as a learnings and how to avoid that in the future.
sure.
Everything for me is success. So you try and you learn and you try again and you succeed. So it's all part of the game.
It was like when I met you on Cascade, like I had already gone up as far as I thought we were going and turned back round. And then you're like, no, let's keep going. Just
Yes.
that shift in mindset that I had to make for that. I was like, no, I was already going back down. Like now I've got to go up again. And that's going to be another 2-3 hours in this whole journey.
Yes.
How do you draw reference from that? Where does your mind go when you choose to keep going? The weather patterns might be, accurate for the day. You've got enough food, you've got enough clothes, you can do this summit, but how do you get your mind to that point?
Well, I think at that point, I remember asking a few questions to the team that decided to continue, because a part of the team decided to return lower in the mountain, and the weather was closing and getting some snow, and the wind picked up, and the summit didn't look very enticing at the time. But you may recall, okay, do we have the basics here, right? Do we have enough water? Do we have enough food? Do we have enough clothing? And also the question is, do we have headlamps? Because I was assessing the pace we were moving, and I don't know if you recall, so we're going to be descending in darkness. So it's like, okay, do we have headlamps here? Because that's a critical element. Without headlamps, then we need to turn around. So the answer was yes to everything. We have water, we have food, we have gear, and we had headlamps. Then we're not too far away from the summit, probably a couple of hours. So moving slowly, we can make it and take our time. If the night comes, so be it. We turn on our headlamps. And the basic philosophy of just put one foot in front of the other, which is very applicable in life. Sometimes we face challenges at work or in life in general. Life throws curveballs many times, and at that time I go back to the basic principle. You know what? Take it easy, one step at a time. We're going to resolve the next problem, and then we'll think about the next one. It's like running the Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc here. Is just go to the next station and climb the next peak. Because if you think at the very end it's 177 kilometers, it's 106 miles. I never start this race or the climb with the summit in my mind. My next goal is just to reach base camp or to reach the next station, and divided the big goal in smaller achievable pieces. I think it's a philosophy I have applied in not only mountaineering or ultra running, but in life in general, particularly when you face difficult situations that sometimes we are overwhelmed with those situations because they look like a Mount Everest, and you are not going to the summit overnight. So cultivate your patience and take a breather, grab a tea, sit down, think, and just plan for the next step. And I think it's a philosophy that it helps in achieving the major goal.
I think that it helps in every facet of life. Someone once told me a couple of years ago, you just have to see the next 6 steps in front. And that doesn't mean if it's on a mountain, if it's at your job, it's a relationship, whatever it may be, just what's here in front of you now and what information do you have to make your next decision. That's so true. And I think, there's a definite correlation between mountaineers, between runners, between ultramarathon runners, really high achievers at work. They're not looking at where they're going to be in 6 years or, when they're going to get to the end of the summit with a cool photo at the end. They're looking at what's in front of them now and what do they need to do to get them there. I think I told you I did a City to Surf little run the other week, and I'd never done any training for running. 6 kilometers was the longest I'd ever ran all in one go. Okay. And I went and did this run. It was 14 kilometers. There's people everywhere, 90,000 people signed up for this event. So you've got to mitigate that. You've got to run in and out of people, all whilst, still maintaining your breathing and everything. And I said to myself, if I could just do it under 2 hours, I'd be happy with that. I've got my music charged up. My phone's battery's full. And I ended up making it in an hour 33, a couple of minutes slower than what someone had done that was going out and training pretty much every week for it. And I just think it shows testament to what your mind can do. More so than your fitness, I guess.
Absolutely. At some point, your mind takes over the body, and the mind is what keeps going, not only in ultra running or in mountaineering, high altitude mountaineering, just in life in general. So I think that's, we can draw many correlations between endurance activities and life. And particularly those moments are very challenging. It's like when you feel exhausted in ultra running, you want to quit. My philosophy was, before quitting, sit for 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe 20 if you have the time. Typically, you reset your mind and you reset your body, and look for something that gives you a little bit of a boost. Like, could be a song, could be some music that you play that song that, okay, I'm going to play this song. Typically, that song will give me a mental boost, or eat something that you like, or just stop and rest. And that's applicable in life. Some days that we're overwhelmed and it's like, I'm going to take this afternoon just to do nothing and just take a little bit of time and take time for myself and go try to go and sleep. And tomorrow's going to be a better day. So I think we need to apply those principles to life in general, because I think we all do these things, whatever it is our passions. But this is a parallel. This is not my job. This is my hobby. I'm a civil engineer, so that's my like a day job, and all this is although I try to do it professionally and well prepared and well trained, and I have my 10 fingers and my 10 toes, which is a testament that
It's a
I'm
big thing.
yes. But yeah, I think we need to apply those principles to life as well, and will help in our general well-being, physical and mental, just to go through life. So that's the reason I keep doing this. It's such a fuel. I would say it's a fuel for my life.
Do you find that gives inspiration out to the community by what you do?
Yes, it's very interesting, because when I do my training in the mountains, sometimes I just go up and down the same peak, 4 or 5 times, and you cross path with other hikers or so, and they see you going up and down and up and down. And typically, maybe they take a full day to go up and one down, and I'm doing that like 5 times. So people start stopping you and say, why were you doing this? And what's your name? And do you have a website? And it's like things like that. And many times I have encountered a few weekends after the first quick chat there for 2 minutes when we cross path, people telling me, you know what, I started biking more often, or I'm going for more walks with my dog, or I started jogging. And for me, that is so rewarding, because it's like, okay, if I can do just a little bit to influence others to start moving, to be active, to have active lifestyles, that's great. I'm kind of doing my job, and there is value for others as well. So very comforting and very rewarding to have those follow-up conversations, and some people saying, you know what, I started moving. And at work, when we were when I was climbing Mauna Concagua the last time a couple of years ago, and we did a challenge. We have about 1,000 staff at the city where I work, and we launched the challenge. So they were following my climb via GPS. I was uploading my coordinates into a Google Earth map, and the GIS team at the city were plotting those coordinates. And we did a challenge that worked with 1,000 people who would be able to kind of follow that to the same vertical climb and longest distance. And it was amazing that the person who won the challenge was a 70-year-old part-time person, was still working in one of our fitness facilities. So he recorded, I think, was more than 750 kilometers during the month I was doing the climb. So that's amazing when again, my little 2 cents, my little, grain of sand, influencing, contributing that others start moving, start having a more active lifestyle. That's a tremendous reward for me.
That's reward enough.
Yes.
So tell me, you're in Chamonix at the moment, this ultra marathon running, where does that come from? Like, how did you even start? Did you start off with half a marathon and keep going, or?
Yeah, so the running always was part of my base training, right? My philosophy always has been, as long as your legs keep moving, you come back home from the big mountains. On Everest or on K2 or in McKinley or Aconcagua, you see many climbers totally exhausted. And what keeps you alive is moving your legs, because even slowly, but if you can move, then you descend and you go back to your tent at base camp, and then you come back home. So keep moving is super critical. So I was always been running all my life as a base training for the mountains, right? To keep aerobic training going. So after completed the 7 summits and 2 post project, I switched more into ultra running. The ability, I would say, to go faster and lighter to the summits. Okay. And again, keep up with my training. So the thing evolved. I started running about 10 years ago, more like ultramarathon, longer distance, 100 kilometers, 100 miles, to a point that I was able to qualify for the Mount Everest, I will call it, of ultra running, which is here in Chamonix, what is called the UTMB, or Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc, which is a 177-kilometer race around Mont Blanc. You start here in Chamonix, France, where I am right now. You cross to Italy, and then you cross to Switzerland, and you go back to Chamonix, France. So it's a full loop around the Mont Blanc Massif. There is a time limit of 46 hours. So it's 2 nights without sleeping. And the total elevation gain is 10,000 meters or 33,000 feet. Elevation gain and loss cumulative. So you go over 11 mountains, crossing from France to Italy, Switzerland, and France. Very demanding. But again, it's great base training. And I was able to qualify. I came here last year to run a portion of this. It's called CCC race. Starts in Courmayeur, Italy, Switzerland, and France. Just to recognize the terrain, I did it in 25 hours. It's 105 kilometers. And this year is like, okay, I'm going to do the big one. And we'll see. The race is in about a week, August 29 and 30th. The weather looks horrible for now. It's raining every day.
Hey, it's been raining in Sydney for 4 days. I have not been outside more than 5 minutes for a coffee. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, here the same. It's a lot of rain.
Yeah.
It's very cold. So I'm bracing for impact for the race.
Do you do much training in the week, like leading up to this?
No, I'm just tapering down right now. I kind of my last big training was about 2 weeks ago, and then I start like more the taper period. And for the last 15 days or so, I just doing very short, intense runs, very short. I would say half an hour max, to maintain my fitness, but to rest. So the last 2 weeks has been more. Yesterday I went to La Flageur. Here is one of the ski centers. It's about 1,000 meters elevation gain and loss. With hiking up, and then I did my run back to Chamonix just to keep moving. I'm still fighting jet lag. With Canada, it's about 8 hours, so I'm still awake in the middle of the night. So trying to resettle here and just trying to rest and eat well and just go for walks and keep moving, but mostly resting, because in 1 week, Friday the 29th, a week and a day, that is the launch of the Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc, and it's going to be intense. I was awake for sure for 1 night in many of my climbs, but 2 nights without sleeping, this will be the first in my life, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And you keep moving the whole time, or you take a rest, or what happens?
Well, that is up to each runner is different. There are about 2,500 runners from around the world.
Wow.
And again, you need to qualify. This is a very extensive process. Takes about 3 years to be able to be here. But it depends. The clock keeps ticking. So my plan is to have 2 power naps of 15 minutes each, at kilometer 100. I'm going to try to do a 15-minute nap, and then at kilometer 140 or 150, another 15-minute nap. They give you here, the organizer, they give you a little sign with your bib, and it says, "I'm sleeping." So if you're in the trail and you're totally exhausted, you want to have a power nap, you put that little sign. So and you look for a rock or something and you curl there and, have a nap. So if other runners come running by you,
yeah,
they see that little sign, "I'm sleeping." So you're not, you're not dead. You're just sleeping a little bit in the trail there.
Well, we hope not, right? Jeez.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
That's my plan. Is depending how's my timing and the conditions. Again, it's looking a lot of rain, which adds an extra level of complexity because of the mandatory gear we need to carry. They will be activating a special kit that is called winter gear kit with additional layers. Like a rain, like a poncho, rain gear, additional layers like additional fleece, because it's winter conditions in the high passes. It's snowing right now. So they probably will activate that special winter kit to carry. It's mandatory to carry that. There are random checks along the 106-mile course. So you need to carry everything in your little backpack. So additional weight. So yeah,
How much does that backpack weigh?
It's about, I would say, with total gear and water and fluids, electrolytes, and I usually liquid fuel, so carbohydrates and proteins and amino acids in my bladder. Probably it's going to be around 8 kilos.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's relatively heavy to carry along the course, but you need to be autonomous in the mountains. There are the stations about 15 kilometers, and where you can replenish your electrolytes, water, food, shelter. So every 15K, you have an emergency station there, and you can, and a timing control. So you need to pass multiple cutoff time points just to keep going. So it's certainly demanding, and the terrain now is very slippery, I would say, because of the rain. So I'm using poles, of course, and special traction in my runners for this type of terrain. So quite
Do you have
a
a
preparation.
shoe recommendation there? A running shoe recommendation?
Yes, I'm gonna run with Hoka's Speedgoat 5 or Hoka Speedgo 6 for different traction. But yeah, the Hoka brand and the Speedgoat model is my favorite for this type of ultra trail.
Would you say overall? I'm looking for a new shoe recommendation. That's why I'm asking.
Yes, yeah, I think for ultra trail, if you're not in asphalt, in the city, because the traction that you have on the bottom of the runner is perfect for ultra trail. Slippery rocks, difficult terrain, rocky mix of, sometimes you go through mud. So yeah, Oka Speedgoat is a good one to test.
Nice. And tell me, Horacio, like what's next after UTMB? It's 2 days. What have you got on the horizon for ultramarathons or summits?
Yeah, so
I hear maybe.
Yeah, I am so focused into this objective now. I've been really training for almost 3 years to be able to qualify and get enough points to be here in Chamonix. Just to be here is a lot of work, and well, we'll see how the race goes. And then, probably I will take 2 or 3 months, what I call, to go into deep rest. I need to allow my body to really recover from the last 2 years have been really intense. So I feel the need to take a little bit of a break. And I think I'm going to use those 2 or 3 months, probably until the end of the year, let's say December 2025, to really sit down quietly and reflect what is coming next. And, there are a few projects floating in my mind right now. One is to go back to high altitude mountaineering in the Himalayas. Can be other races as well, just to keep moving. So undecided yet what path to take, but I think I'm going to take those couple of months, 2-3 months until the end of the year to figure out, the path ahead for the next 2 or 3 years. I always need an objective, and that keeps me going. So defining again my north star, as I call it, and then start breaking the big objective into steps and small chunks, and planning ahead. That keeps me moving.
I like that circling background. And if you could give our listeners any sort of tips or tricks how they get started in this, like if you've got someone in South America or someone in Australia, someone in North America wanting to start with mountaineering or wanting to go and venture out on the trails into ultramarathons, I know it's been in the back of my mind, where would you recommend they start?
Well, I start slow and small, like just set an objective that is achievable, that you want to build a small success. It's like, you don't want to run a full marathon without training, because then your legs will be so sore, and it will be not a good experience. But if you go for a 5 kilometer run, okay, and slowly, and maybe start walking and start biking, do some cross training, just being more active. I would say that depending the level of fitness and your base level. Everybody's different, right? Some people are walking a lot, maybe start jogging. And depending what is your target, some people are like, say, well, I want to do some hiking in the local mountains. Look for something that is within your means, and try and be well prepared. Make sure you have a backpack that fits your style, and some hiking poles, some good shoes for whatever you do, hiking or running, and set up an objective that is, I would say, realistic. Many people want to go and climb Mount Everest, without climbing other peaks, and typically that doesn't end very well. So start small, build some success, that builds momentum, right? Just, okay, I did it, I reached the summit, I'm going to go for something a little bit higher, maybe next weekend or in 2 weeks, and I'm going to go for some walks or some jogs or some bikes, and okay, I want to build my endurance a little bit more. It takes time, be patient, because what we're talking here is endurance. We're not running 100 meters sprint, right? We're not doing that. This is a lot of mental and physical preparations, a lot of visualization. You visualize yourself, in the mountains or in the summit, and be patient. One thing I learned from the Tibetan monks in my time in Tibet was really to be patient, and adapt to Mother Nature, adapt to the weather. I was waiting to attack the summit of Everest for 9 full days. 9 days. That was terrible, because my mind was going crazy, and I had to learn how to control my thoughts and, okay, be patient. So patience, and if you put that at a different scale, like a person that wants to start doing something, the same principle applies. Just be patient. Yes, your legs may be sore for a few days, but then if you keep doing it, your legs will be less sore. And if you keep doing that, then you extend your distance and you will be fine. You won't have any lactic acid in your legs. And then it becomes more like a need. You will feel the need to do that. You will feel the need to go on for a walk, to go for a bike ride. The chemicals in the brain start kicking in, right? And then you're hooked into that. And then you need to do that, and it feels great. I mean, you go for a long run or so, a jog, and come back, have a shower, you feel great. I was so jet lagged here, and I went for my 1,000 meter elevation hike yesterday. I came back feeling way better, right? Mm-hmm. So it's amazing how exercise resets your mind, and then the mind controls the body. So you need to play with that and think about that.
Would you say that that's how you've been able to harness your mind to work in tandem with your body to achieve what you've been able to achieve?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%, because the body, the physical component goes to a point, particularly in endurance events, and then it's the mind what carries you. And learning how to push your mind again takes patience. It takes time, and you find different tricks like music or a particular mountain that inspires you. So you need to find that spot, but that discovery takes time. You may need to try different peaks, different hikes, different maybe trails to ride your bike and slowly build up. And it takes, in my experience, it takes about 6 months to develop the habit. Okay, so you need to be persistent and persevere to create this new habit. I'm talking for maybe a person who is not too active and wants to start doing stuff, right? The first 6 months are tough. And as long as you are aware of that and you keep going, if you cross the barrier of 6 months, then becomes more like, okay, I need this. I feel the need to go for my jog, for my run, do another hike. So I think perseverance is critical, just to build the habit, and then when you are there into that goes for life.
I love that. So I think we'll wrap it up there because I think you need to get some rest and get into UTMB mode for next Friday. Can our listeners reach out and follow you for a bit of inspiration?
Yes, for sure, absolutely. There is an app called Live Trail, so you can download the app and you can follow runners in Live Trail for sure.
I didn't know this. We'll have to download it. Follow you next Friday.
Okay, sounds good.
I love that. Thanks for your time, Horacio. I'm sure we'll get you back on for another segment and go from there.
Okay, fantastic, Jesse. Thank you so much for the chat.
Good luck for next Friday.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.